Good evening, family. Good evening. I am so excited to be with each of you today. I'm especially thrilled with the guest that I am going to introduce you to in a few moments. And before that, I want to let you all know what Candid Conversations is all about. Um, Basically, I love hearing people's stories. I am a believer that healing transcends through storytelling and as well as listening to stories. And so I started this conversation a couple of weeks ago with a few people. When you have a chance, go to the IGTV and you can see the different conversations that we've had with some amazing so far it's been all women on the show, and I'm definitely looking forward to interviewing folks from all gender expressions in the new year, and have gotten so much amazing feedback from each of you about how the different stories have touched you, have challenged you to think about life differently. And I am especially excited about the different ways that people have reached out to me about being interviewed on the show, that I didn't even think was a show. And so now it's a show. Right. And so this year, the very last candid conversation having is with a dear friend of mine who is also a dear colleague, who is an amazing. Hello.
Hi.
Good evening. You look marvelous, darling. Did you wake up like
So
that?
do you. So do you. Look at that makeup.
Oh, I'm so glad that you are here. I'm so glad, Karina, that you said yes to this candid conversation. And so, I thought that we would just go ahead and get started. But first, I want to introduce you, Karina, and just all of what you represent in my life, right? So I met Karina. I was trying to remember the exact year that I met you, and I couldn't quite remember. I think it was 2015.
Yes.
Yes, it was 2015. So Karina Rodriguez is an alum from Columbia School of Social Work. And we had been in conversation because you are an administrator, high level administrator, where you coordinate, facilitate, support, train social workers and guidance counselors in Manhattan's middle school um, division, right, in the New York City Department of Education. And that is such a broad role, because I'm sure there's roles that you have that I didn't even include that maybe you could talk about later, if you feel comfortable. But we met because you agreed to take on a social work student. And then you decided to take the seminar course that you have to take in order to supervise a student. And then Karina was in my class, right? And we bonded, we connected. There was so much storytelling, there was so much strength in your narrative around being an immigrant, right, from the Dominican Republic, and how you have really managed to create the life that for so many is a dream, right? With
Yeah.
you have our, I definitely want to hear of your educational trajectory,
Yeah.
because you against all odds, right, coming to a new country, learning culture, learning new language, learning nuances,
Yep.
and then learning geographically, right, not even living in New York City, which is a huge hub of Dominican culture, but you were like somewhere else. And so we're just gonna jump right in. So let's talk about Karina. First of all, thank you for saying yes. Thank you for being amazing. Karina is also someone who I was coordinating a school social work conference at Columbia School of Social Work. And she was like, oh my goodness, I'll help you. What can I help you with? And there was nothing that you didn't say no to, right? Like, and the truth is, the success of that conference, we're now going into the seventh year of that conference, is due in part to your leadership, to you filling the holes and gaps, where you were
Yeah.
like, Cindy, come here, let me tell you something, right? And so we're gonna talk about that, right? Like your role as a leader, as a mother, as a facilitator of wellness, right? As a social worker and an administrator, you play so many different roles. Not only does she have a master's in social work, but you also have a master's from Columbia School of International and Public Affairs, which is
Yes.
huge,
Yeah.
huge, huge, right? And so tell us, Karina, what made you say yes to this conversation? And we're talking about finding yourself through self-love. Now, I love talking about self-love because
Mm-hmm.
I'm still in the journey of self-love, and we should all be in the journey of self-love.
Yep.
Um, and I know how much this topic resonates with so many people in the world, no matter what your gender expression is. And
Mm-hmm.
so what made you say yes to being on Candid Conversations? And tell us about like you, like who are you and what do you bring to the world?
So thank you for having me. I think, anything that you touch and anything that you're involved is really powerful. You always have the best intentions. You are a person, you are a giver, and you are about giving. So anything that you're involved in, anything that I can do to support you, I'm right behind you and right next to you, to your right and to your left. I admire about you, that you're always supportive of women and you're always supportive. I'm getting teary-eyed. Can you believe that? Because it's very powerful. And in this world, the more that you go up in leadership, the more you find women that are not for women, and that's crazy. So I resonate and I self-identify with you being a woman in a leadership, and then finding someone like you who's also in a leadership position, that is always connecting people, always doing and plugging people in, and just seeing the best in people and letting them know. Sometimes I don't like talking about myself. I don't like the spotlight. I don't enjoy compliments. So, and you're always, you are full of affirmations to everybody. You always see the best in people. So question one, answer one, why did I decide to join today? That's one part of it. And the other one was that I also heard you in one of your candid conversations that, I heard you in one of the conversations that you had with one of the women that came on. And also, like, this past year, you were part of a journey. About a year ago, a little bit over a year ago, I had spinal cord surgery. It was very serious. And you were one of the very, 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 very few people that I told them that this was happening. One, it was kind of all of a sudden that I had to have this emergency surgery. And two, I was just like, oh, and because you have this amazing energy, and I almost, with my eyes closed, can feel comfortable in sharing everything and anything with you, and I know that it's going to come from a good place. You came to the hospital to see me, right? You were the only friend that besides family, that really came to the hospital to see me back in November. So I spent last November Thanksgiving at the hospital, right? So since, I learned a great lesson in that. And that was loving myself again. I had a child about 6 years ago. He's going to be 7. And women, we can all relate how much, as women, we're such givers. We give so much of ourselves to everything we do, with our families, our work life, our professional life, with our partners. So I wanted to be the best mother I could be, right? So hardcore professional. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it 150%. I'm going to give it my all. So because of that, I neglected myself to a degree, right? And I also find myself, in balancing a lot. And the one thing that I forgot was me,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Wow.
And so I've learned a lot in the past year, and also that putting myself at risk of being paralyzed, long term, wheelchair bound, really like was a wake up call to me. Like, girl, you need to get yourself together. Like, you really need to like really, really pay attention to you. So I learned, I remember I had like a small pain, and I had pain, but I was like, oh, after November 6th, because my work was gonna sort of wind down towards like the end of November. So I went all the way September, October, November with barely sleeping, excruciating pain, self-medicating, trying anything and everything, and finally went to the ER and got the news. So when what I learned about that is that I cannot push myself I can't push myself, and I really have to pay attention to me, and I really need to focus on me. And I learned a long way about,
Wait, hold on. I want to pause for a minute,
mm-hmm.
because and I'm pausing because I think it's important that people understand the magnitude of all the things that you were
Mm-hmm.
doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember the spring before this happened, you and I went to a conference in Orlando, Florida,
Yes.
right? Where you were kicking ass,
Yeah.
presenting,
Yeah.
right? You presented on leadership. You were working on like a writing project. You were also supporting the conference. And then you have a role in which you are responsible for the young people and their families, and
Mm-hmm.
help support administrators, and help support all teaching staff in times of crisis,
Mm-hmm.
and help support the helpers that help the helpers.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was also teaching at Columbia too.
I was getting to that. No, not only were you teaching at Columbia, but you were teaching 2 classes. And I remember that Karina used to come to my office in between classes, and you looked like you were in pain. And you were like, I'm in so much pain, I don't even know what's going on. And then I said, well, what are you doing about it? She was like, girl, I'm too busy. Right?
Yeah.
And so you were doing all of those things. And I think it's important that we acknowledge, wait, take him with you, please, because the dog will get in the way.
Come on, sir.
That we acknowledge all the things. And also you're caring for your son, navigating his needs in school, right? You are a wife. You are a caregiver also of your mom, right? You have siblings. You also had a family in Dominican Republic, right? Let's talk about your journey, right? And then you get to this place, because sometimes we want to fast forward to the victory story, right? And the truth is that there's lessons along the way, right? And in fact, you came to my vision board workshop that year before, right? That December of
So it was early. I think vision board was somewhere in February.
Yes, of that same year.
Yeah. My crash was in November.
Okay. So I think it's important in that we acknowledge like all the greatness and also the challenges that you still kept going.
Yes.
Right? You said you started feeling the pain when?
September.
And then you were teaching 2 graduate school classes, right?
Yeah.
No, and not only did she support all these other people, but then you came to my vision board with 2 people.
Yeah,
right? That you introduced me to.
Latasha's on the live, and she just commented too. Hi, Latasha. I love you.
And so I think it's important, because sometimes as women, right, we do things, and I've had lessons, and you check me all the time, which is so funny. Karina be like, are you taking care of yourself? What are you doing to have fun, right? Like, you're always checking in on me, and I appreciate that, because as you go to the top, as you shared that, sometimes we need people to check in on us, not just to say, girl, are you okay? But also to say, girl, what are you doing? Why are you teaching 2 classes and you're in pain, and can't somebody teach it? And Karina was like, no. Karina was like, no, pero I can't do like that. They got to make sure, right? Because you also wanted to make an impression, right? And every person that was in Karina's classes told me that you gave 110% in your classes. So you were in excellence in your job at home, because I know you were navigating some stuff with your son and making sure he had what he needed. And then you were navigating teaching 2 graduate school courses, then your regular job, and then of course life.
Yes.
Right. So I want to acknowledge that and be in gratitude to you for, sharing that journey, but also being gratitude to yourself. Like, you know what, girl, you did that. In pain, you were plugging along.
Yep.
Right. So at what point did you decide? Because I remember the day you decided, I think I need to go to the emergency room. I remember that day. Could you walk us through that, please?
Well, I couldn't sleep anymore. So I'm actually in my bed. So this is how I was able to sleep. I used to sit up in my bed and I could not turn right or left, and I couldn't sleep. So when it got to the point that I wasn't sleeping because I had to sit up and sleep like this, that's when I was like, you need to go. I was really bad because at first I thought it was this, there was that. Yeah. So at that point where I was just sitting and not laying down, I couldn't lay down and had limited mobility, I was like, I need to go check this out. Yeah. And I was like, it was so painful that I was losing breath. And then I remember being in class teaching, and then I would have to be like, the pain would take my breath away and have to pause. And I was honest with the students. I was like, I'm having some pain, but we're gonna finish out the semester. And I did get offered to cover the class, and I was like, I feel like I want to finish with them. I started with the class. We did so much learning, and there's that connection, and that parent in me, that parental thing, I didn't want to just leave them hanging, and I'm like, I want to see it through. So yeah.
Wow. So when the doctors then shared with you what was going on and shared that you have to have surgery, what was your immediate thought? I'm just so curious.
I started crying because he said, this is pretty serious. He's like, I don't know if you understand how serious this is. Right now, if you trip, and let's say if you just walking here and you trip over the rug and you fall, if you hurt yourself, you can be paralyzed permanently. So we need to operate like in the next few days. I was like, what? I was like, wait, I got to take notes. I can't comprehend. And I started to cry because I was in complete denial. I really didn't think that it was that severe that I was going to have to have surgery. Yeah. So, so I was in complete denial. I was like, what? Me? I'm like, how old was I? I was like, I'm 43 years old. I'm like, how could I be having spinal cord surgery? And then when he goes on to explain to me the procedure, I'm like, I'm screwed. And I was getting ready for my end of life because I was like, that surgery is so complicated. I don't see how I'm going to make it out.
Wow. So when you say that you were getting ready for your end of life, that's really serious.
Yeah.
Now, did you call your family? Did you call your friends? How did you engage support during that time?
I didn't engage, like I said earlier, I didn't engage everybody. I was very cautious, and I only engaged few family members, because sometimes you need to be careful of people's energy because they project their own stuff onto you, and I didn't want any of that. So I did tell you, right? I told a few people, but I did not disclose, I made plans with my mother, my support system, my stepdaughter, my husband, that kind of thing. But I really didn't. I was very cautious about, I let people at work, some of the people at work, and I was out of work for 3 months.
Wow.
Post surgery. The recovery is about 3.5 months. Yeah.
So what was that like? And I remember texting Karina when she was off of work, and I go like this, right? Because I wondered how you truly disconnected from such an intense high level job with so many responsibilities. And I remember at one point you were like, so what's going on with the conference? I said, don't ask me that. It's none of your business. I said, you need to relax. So what
Yeah.
was that like, that journey, right? Like you talked about like finding yourself, like you literally had
Mm-hmm.
to go find yourself. First of
Mm-hmm.
all, where did you go that you had to
Mm-hmm.
find yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what was that journey like? Like when people say, I'm going to go find myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Often, you know, it means so many things to so many different people. So what did that mean to you? Like, first of all, where were you that you had to go
Mm-hmm.
find yourself? And then
Mm-hmm.
what was finding yourself? What did that mean to you?
So I was forced, that being in that such vulnerable um, position, I was forced to like pay attention
Wow.
and really, save myself, and so that's where I was like, oh, not me, work, 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 and everything else, that's where I was, where most of us are. A lot of us probably, we're so driven, our professional life and everything else, and we're dedicated that really, our like our immediate environment or takes precedence over our own needs. So that really forced me to take a step back and
Mm,
really sit down. And I am such a go go go, and I am such a busy, I mean, not busy, but also like I have my hands in so many things like you, that it had to take something. I believe it had to take something that tragic and that big for me to like sit my ass down to a degree, because this also has been a journey. And what I did learn, part of it, what I learned is that, um, we we get messages through your life.
mm,
Life is going to give you messages. Your body is going to tell you messages, but we don't listen,
mm.
or we listen but don't acknowledge. You
Wow.
understand? So that's where I found myself. Like, I knew that I had to change my lifestyle. I knew that I had to let go, right? So it's like letting go. If I don't have to be the best at everything, and
Mm,
I don't have to I don't have to teach 2 classes a semester in graduate school at Columbia. I don't have to be, I don't need the superintendent to recognize me for my great work. So letting go of some of that stuff,
wow.
that's also where I found myself, like letting go. Yeah.
That's amazing because, you know, as long as I've known you, like as I shared earlier, sometimes people confuse being an excellence
Mm-hmm.
with like sacrificing who you are,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
To be an excellence. So you sharing this journey, it sounds like that stepping back
Mm-hmm.
also helped you to sort of embrace, first of all, the greatness of who you are,
Mm-hmm.
right, and what you bring to spaces, and that you love yourself enough to say, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Now, you know, and you're also a mom, so tell us,
Mm-hmm.
so your son at the time that you were in the hospital, he was how old, and how did you navigate like being a mom? I know that there's some moms on here, and you know, no one is expecting that you would get sick to the degree
Mm-hmm.
that you did. Nobody expects, right? No one expected COVID to happen, right? And it did. So what was that like navigating being a mom, right? So you said no to all these other things and you realize, you know, I don't need to do all those things to be great, right? I'm great. And I get to determine how my time and energy, like I loved when you talk about the energy, right? That you had to manage to the point
Mm-hmm.
that some people had no clue
Yep.
what you were
Yep.
going through, right? So
Correct.
what was that like being a mom and experiencing this? And what
Mm-hmm.
level of vulnerability did you have to, you know, involve your son in?
So we limited, he didn't come to the hospital to see me, and then we limited, the good thing, I mean, insurance now is like, you in, you're out. It's like recoveries at home. They just make sure the stitches are not coming off, and then they just ship you home.
That's right.
So it's like a 2-day stay. They released me at the third day, so he only came for 1 day. So we kind of limited. We did say that I was getting something done. The mommy was going to go to the doctor, and she was going to be gone. It was heartbreaking for me because like, he's a boy, so he's really active, and he's sick, so he wants to throw himself at me, and we were all scared.
Yeah.
We were all scared. But thank God we managed. My concern was, I started looking up life insurance, like surgery. I was taking like a double. I was looking, yeah. So how crazy we get, right? So I was even looking at malpractice insurance just in case, because I thought that, I'm like, I got to get ready for everything, because if something happens, I have to make sure that my son is okay, or that he's okay, or at least like he's covered. So that was one of my main concerns going to it, because the doctor explained to me the procedure and it was my neck. It was C566, which is on the top. So I was really concerned, and I thought I wasn't gonna, I was not gonna make it, or that, like, I was, so yeah, that was devastating. And I kind of talked a lot to myself about that. I really didn't discuss it with my husband at all, because I didn't want to scare him either, and let him know what kind of state of mind I was in. Oh, so yeah.
So you didn't even let him in on certain thought processes, right? And that was
Yeah.
a protective measure. So, here you are in the hospital. So I just confessed to Karina that when I went to visit her in the hospital, I had no idea what to expect, right? And I'm not one that cries very easily. Like, usually, I've been working towards tapping into my emotions, right? And I remember just being cheerful and joking around, and we chatted for like an hour and a half. I felt like I was like, let me kick myself out of this hospital, because the condition that I saw you in, first of all, I was just like, wow, like I cared about you. You meet friends, and some people, like, I'm very blessed in that I'm still meeting friends, right? Like, I'm 44 years old, and I still meet, amazing women that I get to bond with and connect with, right? So I met you in 2015 and felt like we bonded, we connected. I mean, it wasn't only the professional growth that we had together, but also like we developed a personal relationship. And so, which I cherish very much. And seeing you in that state, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, how do I keep my tears in? How do I keep my tears in, right? The whole time I'm there, I'm like, she's going to be well, she's going to be great. And I remember walking to my car and just breaking down, right? And breaking down and praying, right? For me, prayer is a thing, and it's very real, and for me, poignant. And remember just thinking like, she's going to be okay, and also just feeling scared, right? And for me as a friend, right, if I were in that predicament, I don't know how I would engage, because I'm also very protective of my energy. But what I appreciated is that while she's in the hospital, she's like, so did you finish your dissertation? Right? You're like, so how are you with that? And how's this? And how's the family? Right? And so, like, just so loving, so generous, right? And so, I want us to shift, right? Because your loving and generosity, right? That love that you were exuding to so many people, right? You were doing this, you were doing this, you were doing this. And then you found yourself in this situation where in your mind, you were in a real debacle where you're thinking through, okay, do I tell my husband the severity of what my thoughts are? Like, who do I talk to at this time? And, where do I find myself and really connect with the love I have for myself? And then where are the shifts that I get to make so that I can really live my best life for Karina?
Yep.
Right, and not for everybody else, right? And reminding folks that are just joining on, and thank you so much for joining. Karina was born in the Dominican Republic, right? You came here at what age, Karina?
12.
At 12. That is huge. Every time we talk about it, it blows my mind. Blows my mind. because Karina, tell us a little bit about your educational background, and then connect that with, because there's some unlearnings that we do growing up, right? We learn certain things where you're from, you know, nuestra cultura nos enseña alguna cosa, especially about women and what we're supposed to do and who we're
Mhm.
supposed to be,
Yeah.
right? And then, so you went somewhere because you said you had to find yourself, right? So somewhere
Mhm.
you were somewhere. It could
Yeah.
be because of the cultural implications sometimes, right? Like we're sometimes socialized to be a certain way.
Yeah.
But then you were able to come through. So I would want, and I know that that was a lot that I said, but I know that you don't like talking about yourself, but this is it. You wanted to be on Candid Conversations, and I think it's important that people know, like, first of all, where were you that you had to find yourself, right? And
Mhm.
then what does loving yourself look like now?
Mhm. So going back to make those connections. So I was born in the Dominican Republic, migrated here when I was 12 from the Dominican Republic. I came to Long Island, to Port Jefferson, which is very suburban. If that's not a culture shock, I don't know what is. Back in 1989. So, talk about people talk about diversity. I was like, diversity. There was maybe three people of color in the whole entire middle school. You know, so so you know, so so yeah, so going through that, and being growing up in Long Island is very. It's kind of took me on a journey while I was in Long Island. I was like, something told me like I'm meant for something bigger. Like this is so small minded. Not small minded, but this is like such a small world. There has to be more than this. Long Island, out in Suffolk County. So I was like, I need to. There has to be something more. So I was like, I know what I'm gonna do. I made a school counsel. My school counselor, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful person. She took an interest in me. She's like, "What do you want to do?" And I'm like, I want to be a nurse. I just want to go to a 2 year degree, get a 2 year degree, go to do nursing. So I used to do enough in school just to get by and learn the language and all that. I'm like, I'll just do enough to get by and that's good. She's like, are you sure? Why not do more? I'm like, all right, I guess I'll give it a try. So I ended up applying for a 4 year school. So I threw in, she's like, just throw in some schools, 4 year schools. I'm like, all right. She happens to be the only African American person, the only person of color in the entire school. And thank God, Miss Clyde, my guidance counselor, took an interest in me. And she's like, just throwing some applications to 4 year school. You never know. I'm like, all right. So I did. I got accepted into CW Post, and I was like, you know what? I think I want to. I want to expand. I kind of liked the city life, but I didn't. It was a lot. So did my 4 years there. While I was there, I was involved in like, high school, my first real relationship. While I was there, heartbroken, and I was like, you know what? This is not, I need to do something else. This is not it. This is not it. I went to see Post. I was still on the island. So I was like, I'm going to go to China and I'm going to do a study abroad in China. So I went, did a study abroad in China.
Nice.
Then I was in China. It was great. I lived there. Of course, I always do things I'm not supposed to. I got myself a job as a foreigner, under the tables. I was working illegally in China at a club dancing.
Wait, hold on. You were working? I never heard that part.
Yeah, got myself it was like a foreign club and they wanted whatever. And I was a student and I used to make like $100 a weekend, which in China is a lot of money. So it was $150 or 200 I was making. And I was like bartending and like, and the woman said, I was at a club in China, in Beijing. And she's like, all you have to do is just get on the dance floor. Cause when the club opened, nobody wants to be the first people dancing. So just dance. I'm like, that's what you want me to do? Dance for free? Okay, I could do that. So my little Dominican ass went and got on the floor, and then after, because it was a new opening, then she didn't need me anymore. Then I moved on to bartending. So I was like, you know what? Why stop here? So then I came back, graduated, and then I was like, maybe I should do grad school. And then I had this thing. I'm like, I want to go to Columbia. I know I didn't have the grades because remember, I was a C average student graduating from CW Post. That's not Columbia credentials. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm just going to apply. So I applied to Columbia University, got rejected. I was like, don't worry about it. I'm going to keep on trying. I tried 3 times, got in, and the third time, applied, got in, started with public administration. I was working in the private sector, doing marketing, advertising. So it's like, you know what? This whole sense of public administration, I was in the School of International and Public Affairs, again, really crazy, like just the dynamics, the mixture, the lack of people that look like me, or, there was like 3 of us again. I'm like, here I go again, back being the third person only. So then I was like, I did side projects, I interned, I volunteered. I'm like, I think I should do social work, because I feel like I'm a social worker at heart, because that's what I do. So I ended up finishing halfway through the program when I was about to finish my master's in public administration, going to social work school, and then I graduated from Columbia with a social work degree and then a public administration. And it was really, it's been such a blessing, and it's so great to be a social worker, and it's so great that I found my calling. And it goes back to what my school counselor did, and I'm like, I have to pay it forward.
Wow.
Like me, there are a lot of young people out there that also need that support and that need that guidance, and all they need is a push. So in my current role, I work as the supervisor for the school counselors and social workers in the school, and I am their go-to. And I always encourage them. I always let them know, and I share my personal life, because when you're on the job, it's really hard. People get really demoralized, or also lose courage, and we also lose sight of the impact that we have, or how many lives we touch, and that depending on how we do our job, which is not our regular job, we're touching the lives of human beings. Depending how we do it, it determines outcomes for young people. It did it for me. It determined part of my outcome in life, right? So I'm like, we got to do this in the mass, right? Because there are so many young people that do need that support. So I always, that always resonated with me, and just like there are people that are well intended, and that encourage students and that support students, are people that do the opposite. So we need a lot of us to make sure that we're not sending our youth are not getting the wrong messages, right? Don't give up. I applied 3 times to Columbia, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I was a C average student, and someone told me a long time ago, there was this judge. I worked at a country club, and a judge told me when I was in school, undergraduate, he said to me, I'm not smart. It's not how smart you are, it's how hard you work. And that kind of just stood with me, and I'm like, and that was always undergrad. And for me, it has proven to work, that sometimes you don't need to be, a graduate from Yale or a graduate from Harvard, like all the other people, my peers were at the graduate school at Columbia. But I mean, I had enough intelligence, or skills to get to be able to compete, not at their level, but at some level that was good enough, right? And then that's the message to our youth, and that's the message to people in general that we come across in the world, right? And throughout our lives. So I really believe in social work. I really believe in, and that energy, and having a purpose, right? Because that's what that did for me. That gave me a purpose. Everybody has a different purpose, or what they find meaning and what they find fulfilling. So for me, that is really, fulfilling. So.
Wow. I mean, what's so powerful about what you're sharing, and I saw that Roseanne and Sophia talked about like that importance of that guidance counselor of color that connected with you and saw, not only did she see greatness in you, but then she articulated it and
Mhm.
supported your journey, that she
Mhm.
lovingly encouraged you to
Mhm.
apply to for your colleges when that wasn't the vision that you initially had for
Mhm.
yourself, right? And
Right.
that you persisted in the journey of applying to Columbia,
Mhm.
applying, you know, for some people, one no, one rejection would turn them to another direction. You was like, hell nah, I'm going to keep applying. And I'm so
Yep.
glad that you did, because then we wouldn't have met, right?
That's
And
right.
so, you know, you said something that's poignant. And I think, you know, as women of color, both of us, right, have had discussions about, you know, this notion of working harder, right?
Mhm.
And you know, you came on the show, so you know I'm lovingly encouraging you to think about that, right? Because that working hard drove you to the point of, you know, I mean, that may not be the reason why you got sick, right? But then you talked about this journey of working, making sure everybody was taken care of, making sure Fulanita de Talga had what she needed, making
Mhm.
sure them counselors. I mean, Karina's training for her counselors was on point, to the point that I remember you sent me the schedule one year and I said, you know that you could get paid like to do this for other people, right? Like, because the precision around what you chose for your counselors and social workers, the degree in which you maximized your resources was paramount. And that's the skills that you bring to the table. And so it sounded like this journey that you underwent taught you also to work smarter,
Yep.
right? Where you
Definitely.
get to delegate to people, right?
Yeah.
Even with the conference, I remember earlier that year, you were like, you scaled back a little bit. And I had said to you, because she was my ace, my A1. And I said, you know what, Karina, I think it's time for someone else to take the lead, because you've been, you know, really supporting me for a long time. And I think it's someone else's turn, right? And even in that, you were like a little discomfort, like, what's going on? I'm like, don't worry about what's going on, right? And so I love that you said that, because so many of us get these messages, right? You work hard.
Mhm.
And then you talked about there were obstacles along the way, right?
Yeah.
There were people that didn't look like you. I'm sure the workload was tremendous. And
Yeah.
then
And it
navigating
still is.
and
And it
still,
still is. I cover 100 schools. My colleague covers 30 something schools. They're
what?
still in, yeah, they're still in balance, because you know how it is too. You know, when you find, you know, when we find in workspaces people that are workers and that are doers, you know, and you know, we tend to kind of give the work more to like the people that are reliable, right? So I'm still, but I've learned in the journey to manage it, right? So I manage it. I'm very careful. Like I don't take more on. I'm about the projects. I'm very smart about the projects that I take. I still volunteer and I still do more than the others, but I don't do it in a way that's compromising to me, you know? I'm more faithful to me and my needs, right? And careful and more careful about that. And that's something that the one of the things that also the pandemic it's has taught me, you know, um that you know you know you can't take things for granted, and we really have to you really have to take care of yourself, and one of the things that it's not just superficial. We have to be very careful about that. It's not about I want the next car, I want the house, I want the dream vacation. Loving yourself, it's really about what is important to you and what fulfills you, and finding out what gives you that happiness, right? And it's not about material things, but it's about what are the things that you cherish, that you dream about in your place that brings you that joy, right?
Mm.
um and making sure that that's at the forefront of your everyday, because it's every day. And we have to like kind of recondition ourselves, right?
Mm.
Because we're such doers, and we live in a environment that is so demanding and is so um and it asks so much of the individual, and it's so competitive that, you know, the messages that we get is that you're not enough, or you're not doing enough, or, you know, and then for you, and for sometimes for women of color, just when we're in a position in leadership roles, we have to work 3 times as hard. It's just like when you go to apply for that car loan, you know, you have to, your credit has to be 3 times better than the next person, right? So it's just like that. And that's the reality. And I knew for me to get into Colombia, or for me to be able to look or get opportunities, I will have to work 5 times hard, or set myself apart to be able to be looked and be able to get to those places, right?
Wow.
I made a name for myself. So, you know, like, you know, I am pleased, I'm pleased where I'm at. It brings me joy to know that I can support others, and that I could be in a positive, that I could be a positive role model, and I could be the rock for many. But I also now do it with me in mind, right? So
Wow, that's
so
excellent.
this break, I was like, you know what? I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything, but I'm taking time off. I'm taking a mental health break. So just to disconnect, because you have to disconnect. And you have to just kind of wind down, and it's like we become like hurdle. We're like a hurdle. We just go and go and go and go, and we have the blinders, and sometimes we have to take those blinders off, and we really have to ask ourselves, like, what do you want? You're 40 something years old. Is this the lifestyle you want to live? Like, do you want to get to 60 and not be able to enjoy when you're 60? Like, you're going to have aches and pain because you didn't take care of yourself when you had to, making doctor's visits, eating well. And living a healthy lifestyle takes work. And if you're spending that time doing something else, that's what you're going to get then when you are 60, 75. Like, I don't want to be my mother taking a whole bunch of pills at the age of 75.
Wow.
And so I have to work at it now, right? And I have to prioritize that. And I have to be very, one thing is that I learned that I have to be very, I have to defend my what is it that I want, because there's so many things that pull you so many different directions and will take you off course, right? There's gonna take you off course. And that happened to me when, after I had the surgery, I started kind of getting on this wellness plan, and then the pandemic hit. And next thing you know, I was working like in a chair 12, 13 hours a day, right? Like nonstop. Oh my God, everybody's on crisis mode. People are experiencing trauma. Here's a trauma queen, right? And then there I was all over again, like back in that place where I'm like crisis mode, taking care of everybody else, everything what everybody needs. We're in a pandemic, kids are in crisis, family are in crisis, so then
Wow.
I have to kind of reshift again and be like, wait, what are you're doing it again, Karina? So we have to set up those reminders, because we have bad habits and we have to undo those bad habits, and we have to refocus and reshift and really commit ourselves. But that only comes with time. And we have to really forgive ourselves and really be patient with ourselves. Just make sure that we are in tune and that we are listening to ourselves. In Latina women, like, we're such powerhouse. Like, we do so much and we give so much of ourselves. And like, we're literally like octopus, and we do so much for so many people. And like, it's just incredible, like, like how much we do, and then how much little we do for us.
Right.
It's
Uh,
a really bad, the scale is really bad. If you look, the scale, if you scale it, yeah, it's like this is like that, like it's an inkling like that. It's like we do 90% for everything else, and then we leave like maybe 10% for us.
right.
And what's so to think about, what is your scale? Where are you in your scale?
Mm.
And I remember going back to the vision board, Cindy, and I put these few things
Come
that I
on,
want.
come on, come on. I didn't pay her to talk about the vision board, by the
No, no.
way.
So we did the vision board, right, workshop, and then I mean, I knew what I wanted, And that's the other thing, is like listening to your gut. In your guts of guts, we know what we want and we know what's good for us. We just self-doubt, right? We have all these self-doubts and insecurities that we get or that we feel, whatever, for whatever reason. And I knew what I wanted, but I wasn't working at it. And then in the self and in the vision board, I was like, Mija, what are you doing? What are you waiting for? Like, I wanted to be healthier. Like, I knew I wanted to have a healthier lifestyle. I'm like, why aren't you doing it? My vision board, I had a nice house, not a nice house, or I had myself living in a warmer climate, because I knew New York, I had to change my environment. New York is really toxic. It's an amazing place, but for wellness and the human being and grow, like I needed to go completely the opposite, nurture, I needed to be in nature. I needed surround to slow it down. I needed something to slow me down because I was going so fast, right? And I also put wellness. That's something that I needed, and that was in February, and I crashed in November, right? Like, I have my health crash in November. So I knew in my guts of guts, I knew what I wanted and what I needed, but I was not doing it. And that's really sad, because most of the times we're either in toxic relationships that we stay on longer because we just do, or we have family members that are toxic, we have partners that are toxic, we have friends that are toxic, and we continue to be involved in those relationships that we know in our gut feelings are not good for us, are not healthy, but we stay in that. So me now, I don't stay in that. I try to work at it. And like, when I feel energy that it's not supportive of me and my well-being, and I am such a giver, and if the scale is tipping too much to that other end, I'm like, oh, you got to go, we got to go. And that's the way I'm rolling now, because I want to live longer, I want to live healthier, I want to love myself more. And for me to love myself more, I have to prioritize myself more, and I have to be really careful of my time and my energy, because not everything and everyone is worthy of me, my time, and energy, and my love.
Could you say that again?
Not everything, everyone is worthy of my love and my time and my energy, but I am worthy of that, And the energy that I was spending on people or things that were not healthy for me are not, I examine, and if it's not going the way it should be, we know when we're in these toxic relationships and we come across people or environments, we know. And it's really about listening to your gut feelings and learning. Like, this is a learning process for me, listening to myself, listening to my gut feeling, and just going with it, and just be like, I gotta go, and like balancing out. I am such a giver. I am such a giver that I have to slow myself down, and I have to tell myself, oye, colo suave, like, take it easy. So that's where I'm at, and that's something that I have to continuously work on. And then I've started a journey of wellness. I'm running 6 to 7 miles. Oh my
What?
God, I cannot believe it. Yes,
That's
6 to 7 miles I'm running. And I couldn't believe it. I bike, I'm swimming, I'm running. And I was like, what? Like, and I feel so great, every time I'm out there. And believe it or not, I started in July. I have not gotten in the scale once. So anybody who wants to throw any shade at me, I haven't gotten the scale once, because it's not about weight loss. So it's not about being superficial, but when you care for yourself and you look good, you feel good inside, because you're you know you investing in yourself. And when I'm out there, and like I feel like myself again, like I'm doing this for me, and and I'm gonna be healthier, and I feel healthier, I feel lighter. And it's just like, it's all connected. We all know that it's connected. Your mental health and your physical, then there is a connection. And just be having that healthier lifestyle, like, is so needed. There's no reason. I mean, there are a million reasons what we did, and we have to do the hard work.
That's
like,
nice.
I got up and left in New York. So I went there. I left New York. Yes. I left New York because it was going to kill me.
Wow.
It was literally gonna kill me, you know.
You know, and Karina, I mean, you are like talking right into my spirit right now in so many ways. I'm so proud of you. I met you when Brandon, you had just given birth to Brandon. I remember he was about 6 months old when you came into my SIFI class. And I remember that, you know, what you wanted to create for him, right? And your concern as a mom, as a professional, and how do you navigate all the different worlds? And you are doing that damn thing.
Yeah.
And Eileen is always cracking me up. Eileen said the only place she's running to is the bathroom.
Let me tell you, he started slow. I started walking. I was walking. I started walking. I was literally walking because I was so out of shape. The last time I worked out was like 8 years ago, 9 years ago, and I just started walking and I pushed myself a little bit. I went from walking to maybe jogging half a mile and walking, and then and I went back and forth, and I pushed myself, and in everything I do, I always push myself.
Wow.
So I do push myself because I'm like, I just,
Wow.
I saw the benefits. How much energy. Like, I'm drinking my coffee black with no sugar. Like, I never thought I was gonna do that.
Amazing.
I go to my walk and then I come back with my jog and I have so much energy. I don't even need coffee anymore.
Karina, something's going on with the speaker that we can't hear you.
Oh,
now we can hear you.
Now?
Yeah,
okay, right.
now.
Sorry, guys.
So I wanted to open it up for any questions. You could either put it in the chat box or in the question
sorry.
insignia. Karina, I'm so inspired by your journey. I'm so proud of you. I'm happy for you. I can't wait to see what you do next, right? To grow and to enhance the lives of others. I've been saying for a long time, I can't wait for your book, right? And wow, I'm just left with like nothing to say, which is very unusual. We have one question. Did you have to weight loss surgery? Oh, Eileen came late. She didn't know what kind of surgery you had.
Oh, okay. Did she have any? Oh, no, no weight loss surgery. I wish. I've been working really hard at this. I had spinal cord surgery. I don't know if you could see my scar right there. So that's my scar right there from the surgery. Yeah, so I have spinal cord surgery. Interesting enough, they go through the front to get to the back. That's why I was freaking out. I'm like, I'm not making out of this shit. Because they go through the front. But my weight loss, and you know what? And put it in your vision board if you want to go to Cali. Like, I seriously, this was a 2-year process. I knew, like, when, I don't know if any of you guys eat salads or you need fruits or vegetables, when you start eating healthy, then when you get in that rhythm, your body calls that it wants greens. It's like withdrawal. It's like the same thing if you smoke cigarette. When you're a cigarette smoker, you quit smoking cigarette, it needs that nicotine. The same way your body craves and has cravings for things. Like, my body craved for me to be in a very nature. Like, I'm a Scorpio. I love the beach. I love the water. I love nature. Guess where I'm at? I'm 12 minutes from the beach. I go run at the beach. Oh, I have a state park by my house. I go running. I go biking. And, so it was a 2-year process. We looked in Florida. We looked in Colorado. We looked in South Carolina. And we ended up in Florida.
But there was also a part of the journey that I don't want us to overlook, right? It was that decision when you said, I'm doing this, right? And then you took the steps to do that. And then you also trusted your instinct, right? And knowing that you had all these other factors. I think, having someone, being a caregiver to elderly parents, that's very real. And thinking about, how is that care going to happen? And also it's like trusting, right, that the universe is going to conspire on your behalf.
Yeah. And thank you for mentioning that, because, it's you taking chances, right? And it's taking that leap of faith, right? And it's putting it in the hands of God, and you having, you know, you having this attitude, no matter what, I'm gonna make it. It might not be ideal. And one of the things that I picked up from one of Cindy's conversations with one of the young ladies that was here on the live was that they had an ideal, right? And you have to be careful what your ideals are, because ideals sometimes keep you stuck, because you envision yourself, well, by the time I'm 40, I'm going to have 5 kids. That's an ideal. And then when those ideals don't come to fruition, you feel devastated. You feel broken. And the messages that you internalize to yourself, like you didn't do it, or you are not good because you didn't make it happen. So be careful with the ideals you tell yourself and what you should and should not, right? I took a chance, and I have conversations. If I'm going to try this, if it works or not, but I'm going to make it work. Like, I'm a warrior. Soy una guerrera. I'm going to make this shit work one way or the other. Like, you know, I got three master's degree. I have a school building leader. I have a principal license. I have a social work license. One of those damn degrees better get me a job that I'm going to be doing whatever. And at this point, I don't mind going to Bloomingdale's and working at Bloomingdale's so I can have a job that is not high stress and that is maybe fashion. And then I can, you know, just bullshit and just take my mind off of things and chill. That I don't want to be the person who has to provide all the answers. Like, I don't mind taking that break also. And it's okay with that. And, you know, and that's what I need. And that's what I need, right? Working for Bloomingdale's and selling shoes or clothes to whatever, and whatever it is, you know, maybe I do that. And that gives me time to work on myself, because I don't really have to think I'm selling shoes. But when I'm talking about human lives, and this one died, or this one was raped, or this one is being neglected, or the parent has killed the kid, or the mom was murdered by the boyfriend, or, you know, it's just so much tragic. And I was internalizing a lot of the tragic. Like, I deal with a lot of tragic human, and sometimes I explain to people that don't know about mental health, like, in mental health, you give yourself.
Yes.
If you're a good mental health provider, you taking in those people's energy. For you to be with, you have to take that on.
Yes.
And for you to take that on, that's a lot on you to take that on when you do mental health. So people of mental health or that are in the counseling field, you have to really nourish yourself and your soul. And you really have to take care of yourself, you know? So that vision board, if you want to go to California and you have elderly parents, it's a process, but work on your process, right? Just know that you'll get there someday. If that's what you dream, and that's what it's going to nourish your soul, and that's going to feed your soul, and that's going to be your happy place, work on your happy place. Mm-hmm. It's a process, and it's a journey, you know? Wow. So work on that. As long as you're working on it, it'll happen. Just don't set a date, because that's the ideal. And don't marry yourself to an ideal, because then you're kind of putting yourself in a corner. If that doesn't happen, you're like, ugh, you know? Mm-hmm. And let it roll and have faith, and you do good by yourself and by others, all great things are going to come to you. And just open yourself to what's going to come to you.
Don't you wish you had a friend like Karina? Karina, oh my goodness, I absolutely love you. I love all that you represent. I honestly would not be where I am if it were not for your encouragement. You know, my tribe, I'm very intentional about who's in my tribe, and you are in my tribe, right? Like, my tribe is like this, and it's tight. And I'm just wishing you all of the great things. I'm excited about your journey, your self-love journey. And I know this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. And I can't wait to read your book. I'm going to say it again. If anyone else has any other question that you want to give to Karina, let's give her some hearts for everything that she shared with us today. Send her love, healing, connection. I am doing a vision board workshop. The first one was sold out. So the next one is Saturday, February 6th. Definitely catch your tickets. I know I got a couple of emails and texts from people that were waiting after the holidays to buy their tickets. So we always sell out. Definitely, you know, get to that. And if you're not attending my vision board workshop, it's all good. Make sure
Mhm.
that you're setting your intentions. Make sure that you are writing them down. Make sure that you're
Mhm.
visualizing. Make sure that you are spending time with yourself so that you can get the downloads you need, so that you can trust your instincts to take risks that are particular to you, right? That's I heard Karina talk about taking risks. I heard Karina talk about trusting herself. I heard Karina talking about acknowledging where there are areas that needed growth and where she needed to shift, right? I heard her talk about exercise. I heard her talk about how she's affirming herself, talking to herself about where she needs to be and how she needs to engage her thoughts, right? Who is she engaging with energy wise, right? And I didn't hear her talk about writing down those things, but that's something that I encourage you all to do, as I've been
Mhm.
lovingly encouraged Karina to share her journey, right? So everyone have a wonderful evening. This was very special. If you have a story to share, please DM me, text me, and let's get
Mhm.
it on for 2021. Have a fantastic evening, Karina. Happy
You
New Year,
too.
everyone. I send you so much love. You know, loving on yourself, there is nothing more valuable than that. That's
Yep.
priceless. Happy New
Yep.
Year, everyone, and take care.
Bye.